I got the job at Harrington Mall through a friend of my cousin. It wasn't much, just a night shift security position, but it paid better than anything else I could find after dropping out of college. Harrington Mall had been closed down for a couple years, but some developer had plans to renovate it, so they needed someone to guard the place at night, keep out vandals, squatters, stuff like that. The mall sat on the edge of town, far from any neighborhood or traffic. By day, it looked abandoned and depressing, cracked pavement, faded signs, windows coated in grime. At night, though, it looked worse. The darkness seemed thicker around that place, like the whole building was soaking it in. My supervisor, a guy named Paul, gave me a quick walkthrough on my first day. Most of the stores were empty, the shelves stripped bare, mannequins lying on the floor like broken bodies. The lights in the corridors flickered, no matter how many times they were replaced. Paul said it was a wiring issue, but they never bothered to fix it. Before he left, Paul handed me a radio and said, "Don't go near the old fountain after midnight." I thought he was messing with me. I even laughed, but he didn't smile back. I brushed it off. First nights are always weird, I figured, but by 1 a.m., I realized this wasn't just nerves. Something was seriously wrong in that place. By 11 p.m., I had already walked the full circuit of the mall twice. Nothing seemed out of place, other than the usual dust, silence, and that strange, heavy feeling in the air. But around midnight, things started to shift. It began with the static on the radio. I had left it clipped to my belt, and out of nowhere, it started hissing like someone was blowing into the mic on the other end. I tried responding, thinking maybe Paul was checking in, but no one answered, just the soft crackling noise that seemed to grow louder the more I spoke into it. Then the lights near the central atrium flickered and went completely out. I walked toward them, flashlight in hand, trying to stay calm. The fountain Paul warned me about was right in the middle of that dark section. It hadn't worked in years, just a dry basin now, full of dirt and old leaves. But when I stepped closer, I could hear dripping. Not just random, occasional drops, but a steady trickle, like water flowing from a pipe. That didn't make sense. I moved closer, and the smell hit me. Wet metal, like rust and stagnant water. But when I shone my flashlight into the basin, there was nothing there. No water, just a mannequin arm lying in the middle. It hadn't been there earlier. I turned around fast. The corridor behind me was empty, but I swear I felt someone standing just inches away from my back. The air had changed too. It was colder, heavier. I could hear my own breath. And beneath that, I swore I heard whispering. Not loud, not even clear. Just a soft string of syllables that didn't make sense. I told myself I was being paranoid. It was my first night. I was alone in a creepy place, and my mind was just playing tricks. But when I checked the security monitors around 1:30, something made my stomach drop. One of the cameras, camera 5, covering the west hallway, was showing footage from earlier, like from daytime. The lights were on, the walls were clean, and I could see shadows of people walking past the storefronts. But I was watching live. I switched to the other feeds. All normal, empty, dark, abandoned. Only camera 5 was acting weird. Then, the feed on that camera glitched. It cut to a single frame. The fountain. The mannequin arm was gone, and in its place, there was someone crouched at the center. Pale, hair over their face, not moving, and I hadn't seen anyone enter the mall. My hands were shaking. I felt something watching me, not just from the screen, but from inside the mall. Something was here, and I wasn't alone anymore. I should have left the moment I saw that thing on the camera, but I couldn't move. My legs were frozen, my breathing shallow. Something inside me kept whispering, "Just go look. Just check to be sure." So I did. I left the security office and walked back toward the atrium, flashlight gripped so tight my knuckles ached. The lights above flickered again as I stepped into the open space. Everything was still, quiet. Then I heard the dripping again, louder this time, steady, closer. The fountain was no longer dry. Water now filled the basin, but it wasn't clear. It was dark and thick, almost black. The mannequin arm was floating in it, spinning slowly, like it was caught in some invisible current. And crouched in the center of the fountain was the figure from the camera. They looked human at first, long black hair hanging down like a curtain. pale limbs twisted unnaturally. But as I stepped closer, it lifted its head. Its face was wrong. No eyes, just smooth skin where the socket should have been. Its mouth stretched wider than any human mouth should, full of jagged, broken teeth. Blood smeared down its chin. Then it spoke, not with words, with a sound that hit the inside of my head, like a scream underwater. I dropped the flashlight, stumbled back. My vision blurred. I could hear whispering again, louder now, clearer. Voices saying things I didn't understand but somehow felt. Regret, despair, hunger. The figure lunged toward the edge of the fountain, but before it could climb out, the lights all around me shut off with a loud clunk. I was plunged into darkness. I didn't wait. I ran. I sprinted down the corridors, past empty storefronts and broken glass, the whispering following me, crawling up my spine. I didn't stop until I reached the exit door and burst into the parking lot, choking on cold air, hands trembling behind, radio, flashlight, my bag. All I cared about was getting as far from that place as possible. I didn't sleep for 2 days after that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that thing's face, blank where the eyes should have been, mouth wide like it wanted to swallow me whole. I tried to tell Paul what I saw, but he barely let me finish. He just nodded slowly, like he already knew. Then he said something that stuck with me ever since. It doesn't follow you if you don't acknowledge it. That was the last conversation we had. He quit the next week. I kept trying to convince myself it was just my mind messing with me. Maybe I'd fallen asleep and dreamed it. Maybe the footage glitched. But then I got curious, too curious, and searched online. Turns out Harrington Mall had a history. There were stories going back decades. A girl went missing near the fountain back in the 80s. Never found. Another guard in the 90s had a breakdown on shift and was hospitalized. No one ever explained what happened. I haven't stepped foot near that place since. But even now, sometimes when I walk past reflective windows or puddles, I catch glimpses, just for a second, of that pale figure crouched and waiting. The worst part is, a small part of me still wonders what would have happened if I hadn't run. If I had stayed one moment longer. There's something wrong with that mall. Something old. Something that doesn't like being seen. And it remembers me. I never took another night shift job after that. Something in me broke that night. Some sense of safety I didn't even know I had. I moved in with my sister for a while, just to feel like I wasn't alone. But even surrounded by people, I never truly felt safe again. I've thought about seeing a therapist, but I don't know how to explain what I saw without sounding insane. How do you tell someone that a dead mall whispered to you? That something in it looked through your soul, like it was reading your last memory? I avoid dark places now. Parking garages, empty hallways, reflective surfaces. I don't trust them. Not anymore. Sometimes I dream I'm back there, in the mall. I hear the dripping, and when I look down, I'm the one sitting in the fountain, arms pale and twisted, mouth stretching into that impossible grin. I always wake up before I scream. What haunts me most is the thought that I wasn't chosen by mistake, that whatever's in that mall didn't just show itself to me. It let me go, maybe to spread the fear, maybe to remind the world it's still there. Sometimes, late at night, I think about going back, not because I want to, but because some part of me feels pulled there, like unfinished business, like a door I cracked open but never truly closed. I won't go. I know better now, but the mall is still standing, still abandoned, and someone else is probably starting their first shift tonight. I needed the job. After my dad passed and left us drowning in debt, I took whatever I could find. So when Miller's Funeral Home posted an overnight caretaker position, I didn't hesitate. Even if the idea of being alone in a place full of corpses made my skin crawl. The building stood at the edge of town, quiet and gray, with ivy creeping up its brick walls and a rusted iron gate that moaned every time it opened. It had been around since the early 1900s. Some families in town had buried generations there. A couple kids at school used to joke that the basement was haunted. I never believed them. Not until my first night. Mr. Carr, the funeral director, gave me a short tour. He was an older man, soft-spoken and pale, with hands that shook when he handed me the keys. "You don't need to go downstairs," he said without making eye contact. Just keep the front lights on and make sure no one breaks in." I nodded, trying not to stare at the viewing rooms, empty now, but still full of flowers, framed photos, and the faint smell of incense. Right before he left, he paused at the front door. "If you hear the service bell ring after midnight," he said, "don't answer it." I waited for him to laugh. He didn't. He just stepped outside and locked the door behind him. I stood alone in the silence of the funeral home, the air thick with dust and something else I couldn't name. And then, just past midnight, the bell rang. The bell rang once, just a sharp ding, echoing from the viewing room down the hall. At first, I just froze, staring into the dimly lit corridor. I remembered what Mr. Carr said, "Don't answer it." But that made no sense. Why have a bell at all if it wasn't supposed to be used? I tried to tell myself it was an old building. Maybe a draft moved something. Maybe a mouse ran across a string, or whatever set the thing off. I waited. 10 minutes passed. Nothing happened. Then it rang again. This time it sounded closer. I got up from the front desk and walked down the hall. The shadows stretched weird across the carpet. Every step I took made the old wood beneath my feet creak, like something breathing beneath me. I peeked into the first viewing room, empty. Same with the second, but the third one. The chair in the far corner was no longer empty. There was a woman sitting in it. Pale skin, long black hair that covered most of her face, hands folded neatly in her lap. She didn't move, didn't flinch, even when I shined my flashlight right at her. But the weirdest part? There wasn't supposed to be anyone here. No services tonight. Mr. Carr told me the place was cleared for the weekend. I stepped into the room, heart pounding. "Ma'am," I said quietly, like I didn't want her to hear me. No response. The light flickered. For a split second, I swear her head turned toward me. But when the light steadied again, she was still. I backed out and shut the door. I don't even remember doing it. My hands were cold. My fingers are shaking. Back at the desk, I checked the records. There was no one scheduled for viewing. I even unlocked Mr. Carr's logbook. Nothing. That room was supposed to be empty. Then the bell rang again. Not just once. Ding, ding, ding. I walked toward the hall again, but this time, I noticed something different. The air had changed. It smelled sweet, sickly sweet, like flowers left too long in stagnant water. Then I heard soft footsteps on the carpet behind me. I turned around quickly, but the hallway was empty. The door to the basement was open, and I hadn't opened it. I should have left. I should have called Carr or walked right out that front door. But something about that open basement door felt like a challenge. Like the house itself was daring me to see what was down there. The stairs creaked under my weight as I went down, flashlight trembling in my hand. The basement was colder than it should have been. The kind of cold that sinks into your skin, like the air itself doesn't want you there. At the bottom, there were rows of metal drawers and an embalming table in the center. Tools lay neatly beside it, too clean, like someone had just used them. And then I saw her, the woman from the viewing room, standing at the far end of the basement, half hidden in shadow. She wasn't sitting anymore. She was facing the wall, completely still, hands by her sides. "Hello." My voice barely came out. She didn't move. I took one step closer, the flashlight beam shaking. That's when I saw her reflection in the metal cabinet beside her. She was smiling, but her actual face, what little I could see of it, wasn't. Suddenly, the light in my hand flickered out. I smacked it a few times, heart pounding. When it came back on, she was gone. Then the service bell upstairs began ringing again. Ding, 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 ding. Faster and faster. I ran up the stairs, 2 at a time. The bell stopped the second I hit the landing. The front door was wide open, and standing just inside, soaking wet and barefoot, was a man in a funeral suit. His eyes were milky white, and water dripped from his sleeves, like he remembered me, cooling on the floor, like I was the one who buried him. Then his lips moved. "You rang." I screamed, and everything went black. I woke up lying on the floor by the front desk, cold sweat sticking my shirt to my back. The lights were on again. The front door was closed. The hallway was empty, and the bell was gone. The little silver service bell that had rung all night. It wasn't on the desk anymore. At first, I thought I passed out. Maybe I imagined everything. Maybe the stress of the job, the smell of chemicals, the setting, all of it had just gotten to me. But then I noticed the footprints. Wet, muddy footprints, starting from the door and ending where I lay. I stood up on shaky legs and went to the viewing room. The chair was empty again. No pale woman, no scent of rotting flowers. But something had changed. On the edge of the seat sat a black funeral glove, old, damp, and covered in tiny specks of dried earth. I grabbed my bag and left without locking up. I didn't even wait for the sun to rise. I walked until my legs gave out and called my sister to come get me. I tried telling her what happened, but the words didn't come out right. They sounded like a dream. She told me I needed rest. Maybe she was right, but deep down I knew better. There was something in that funeral home, something that didn't rest, something that noticed me. And ever since that night, mirrors fog up when I pass by them. My phone sometimes rings once in the middle of the night, but there's never anyone there. Worst of all, sometimes, just as I'm falling asleep, I hear that bell. Just one ding. Soft. Right outside my bedroom door. I never went back to Miller's funeral home. I didn't even collect my paycheck. Mr. Carr never called to ask why. I don't think he needed to. He knew. Maybe that's why he warned me in the first place. Maybe he'd seen it too. It's been a few months now. I've taken a regular day job at a grocery store. It's boring, loud, and full of people, exactly what I need. But even in crowds, I feel watched. I check every reflection, every shadow. I don't like being alone for long anymore. I've started avoiding bells entirely. I flinch when I hear them in stores. I can't stand the sound. Sometimes I think about that pale woman. The way she didn't move, didn't breathe, like she was waiting for something. And that man in the suit, dripping with grave water, saying you rang. It plays in my head some nights, looping in the silence like a stuck record. I think I understand now. The bell wasn't a warning. It was a doorbell. And I opened it. Whatever I invited that night, it didn't follow me home right away. But I can feel it getting closer, like it's walking a little further down the hallway every night, waiting for me to ring again. Or worse, waiting for its turn. I keep telling myself that none of it was real. But last night, I found the funeral glove again, wet, folded neatly, on my kitchen counter. And I don't own one. I wasn't expecting much when I started at the warehouse on Route 12. It was just a temp job, overnight inventory, moving boxes, checking logs. The pay was decent, and I needed something fast. I didn't care that the place was old or halfway out in the middle of nowhere. From the outside, the building looked like it hadn't been touched since the 70s. Faded logo, boarded up windows on one side, and a rusted loading dock that creaked when you stepped on it. But inside, it was cold and organized. Rows of shelves, forklifts, boxes sealed tight. Everything in its place. My supervisor, Mike, was quiet but seemed decent. He gave me the rundown in about 5 minutes flat. Don't wander off. Don't open any tagged crates. And if the buzzer in bay goes off, ignore it. I asked him what that meant. Why would a buzzer go off in a bay that's not used anymore? He didn't look up from his clipboard. It just does sometimes. Faulty wiring or something. Just don't go over there. I let it go. Figured it was one of those weird workplace things people joke about to freak out the new guy. But once the sun went down and the other guys clocked out, I realized how quiet that building really was. Just the soft hum of the overhead lights, the occasional metal groan of the walls settling. And then, right after midnight, the buzzer in Bay 4 went off. Just one loud, echoing BZT. And something in me knew it wasn't a glitch. I stood still for a while after the buzzer went off, waiting to hear if it would stop or repeat. But it didn't. Just one long blaring noise, then silence. The kind of silence that makes your ears ring. I reminded myself what Mike said, ignore it. Just keep working. So I did. I went back to scanning boxes, stacking pallets, pretending I didn't feel that itch crawling up the back of my neck. But the warehouse didn't feel the same after that. The air felt heavier, colder, like the building was holding its breath. Every sound, every distant clank or creak, felt deliberate, too precise to be random. Around 1 a.m., I passed by Bay 3 while moving a pallet and noticed something strange. One of the overhead lights near Bay 4 had turned off. The rest of the warehouse was lit like normal, but that section was swallowed in shadow. I didn't plan on getting close, but I had to walk past it to get to the other shelves. As I did, I heard something. Not a machine. Breathing. Slow, labored breathing. Raspy, like whoever, or whatever, was making it had lungs full of dust. I turned fast, but there was nothing there. Just a row of crates stacked against the bay door. But now, one of those crates had a broken seal. It was small, maybe the size of a child's toy chest. No tag, just a faint smear of something dark around the edges. I backed away, fast, and nearly tripped over a loose strap. That's when I saw the footprints. Not mine. Not boot prints, either. Bare feet. Small. Like a kid's. They started at the crate and led into the shadows of Bay 4. I didn't want to follow them. I knew I shouldn't, but I couldn't stop staring. I felt pulled. Then the buzzer went off again. BZZZT. Louder this time. The warehouse lights flickered, and for a split second, I thought I saw someone standing at the far end of the bay. Short, head tilted, just staring at me. And then the lights came back on, and they were gone. I should have left right then, walked out, called Mike, quit on the spot. But something had its hooks in me. Maybe curiosity, maybe something worse. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped toward Bay 4. The temperature dropped with every step, like I was walking into a freezer. The air smelled like rusted metal and something sour, like wet carpet and rotting wood. The footprints were clearer now, and there were more of them, some going in circles, some leading toward the loading dock door that hadn't been opened in years. I followed them, breath held, heart slamming in my chest. That's when I heard it. A giggle. Small. Childlike. Not happy. It sounded wrong. Too slow. Like it had been recorded and played back at half speed. Then I saw the crate. It had been pushed open wider. I shone my light inside and nearly dropped it. There was a doll lying in there. Porcelain. Cracked face. Dressed in an old-fashioned dress that looked stained and burned. Its glass eyes were clouded, one of them hanging slightly out of its socket. And it was breathing. I swear to God, it was making that same slow, dusty breathing sound I'd heard earlier. Then something moved behind me. I turned just in time to see a shadow dart across the aisle. Small. Fast. I stepped back. The light flickered. When it steadied again, there was someone standing at the far end of the bay. A little girl. Or what used to be one. Her head was tilted, jaw hanging loose, eyes missing entirely. Just black holes. She pointed at the crate. Then her mouth opened unnaturally wide, and she screamed. But no sound came out. The buzzer went off again, this time non-stop, and every light in the warehouse blew out at once. And I ran. I didn't stop running until I hit the gravel outside. I don't even remember how I got the loading dock door open. Just the rush of cold night air hitting my face, and the sound of my boots pounding the ground. I sat in my car for what felt like hours, keys shaking in my hand, trying to process what I'd seen. I kept checking the rearview mirror, half expecting her to be there in the back seat, just sitting in the dark, staring. Eventually, I drove off. I didn't clock out. I didn't grab my stuff. I didn't even turn off the lights in the office. I just left. The next morning, I got a text from Mike. All it said was, "You opened a crate, didn't you?" I didn't reply. I didn't need to. I tried to forget. I told myself it was sleep deprivation, stress, old warehouse fumes messing with my head. But every night since, I've heard something faint coming from the vents in my apartment. Soft breathing. Like a child's. Sometimes I see tiny footprints on the kitchen floor. Wet, dirty, leading nowhere. And 3 nights ago, I found a porcelain hand on my pillow. Cracked. Cold. I threw it out. But it was back the next morning. I know now. Whatever I let out of that crate didn't stay behind. It followed me. And it's not finished yet. I don't go out at night anymore. I leave the lights on in every room. I keep salt around the doors like some online forum said. I even taped a cross above my bed. But nothing helps. The thing from a warehouse, it's not just a ghost. I'm aware. It waits. It plays with time, space, and my mind like it's testing me. seeing how far I'll bend before I break. I tried to talk to Mike again to get answers, but when I showed up at the warehouse 2 days later, it was locked up, abandoned. No trucks, no employees, not even a power line connected anymore. Like it had been shut down years ago. But that's not possible. I worked there last week. I think about that crate sometimes, the small, tagged one with a broken seal. I wonder if it was even meant to be opened by human hands. If something was buried there for a reason, forgotten on purpose. But I touched it. I looked inside. I acknowledged it. And now I see her sometimes. In reflections. In glass doors, bus windows, the back of the TV screen. The little girl with no eyes, tilting her head and pointing at me. I haven't slept properly in days. Every night, I wake up at exactly 12 a.m. That's when I hear the buzzer. Not in the warehouse anymore, but inside my walls. It only rings once, but it's getting louder. Ridgeway Psychiatric Hospital wasn't my first job, but it felt different from the start. The building itself sat on a hill just outside town, tall, gray, and forgotten by time. Most of the windows were barred, the paint on the walls was peeling, and half the wing had been sealed off after a fire 20 years ago. Still, they were desperate for staff, and I was desperate for work. I took the night shift. The head nurse, Janice, gave me a rush tour. "You'll stay on the West Wing tonight. Monitor vitals, keep notes. Lights out by 10, mess at midnight," she said without emotion. Just before handing me the clipboard, she added, almost like an afterthought, "If you hear knocking from room 6, ignore it. It's been empty for years." I tried to laugh it off. She didn't. As she left, I asked what happened in room 6. She just said, "Don't go near it. Don't talk to it. Don't let it talk to you." That was it. By 11 p.m., most of the patients were asleep. The halls were silent, except for the occasional cough or muttering behind closed doors. I kept checking the vitals, glancing at the room numbers as I passed them. Everything seemed fine. But then, at exactly 12:03, I heard 3 soft knocks. Tap, 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 from behind the door of room 6. And I swear I heard someone whisper my name. I stood frozen outside room 6, clipboard clutched tight in my hands. The door was closed, just like all the others. The window was fogged over on the inside, impossible to see through. I backed away slowly, heart racing. I told myself it had to be a draft, or maybe some patient got up and wandered into the wrong room. That kind of thing happens in night shifts, right? Still, something felt off. I checked the logs. Room 6 hadn't been used in nearly 2 decades. After the fire, there wasn't even a bed in there anymore. I walked back to the nurse's station and tried to shake it off, but I couldn't focus. Every time I glanced down the hallway, I felt like someone was standing just outside the edge of the lights, watching. At 12:30, the hallway monitor beeped. Motion in the west corridor. Room 6. I leaned closer to the screen. A figure, tall, thin, wearing white, stood at the door, just outside it, not moving. But when I looked down the hall in person, no one was there. I walked the corridor anyway, flashlight shaking in my hand. As I passed the patient rooms, I heard something strange. Everyone was mumbling in their sleep, all at once, like they were praying or reciting something. Their voices low, steady, almost rhythmic. I stopped by room 5. Inside, the patient, an older man named Harold, was sitting straight up in bed, eyes wide, staring at the wall. He looked at me and whispered, "It knows you're new." Before I could speak, the lights flickered. Then I heard the knocks again. Tap, tap, tap. And this time, a voice from behind the door. Not a whisper, not unclear. A girl's voice, calm and polite, said, "You don't have to be afraid. You're not like the others. You can help me." I ran back to the nurse's station, slammed the door, locked it, but the motion sensor beeped again. Room 6, door open. That's when I realized Janice had locked it before she left, with a key, and I didn't have one. I stared at the monitor in disbelief. The door to room 6 had been locked for decades. No patient, no key. Nothing should have been able to open it. And yet there it was, wide open. The hallway lights started to flicker again, one by one. going dark from the far end toward me, like something was moving through them. Closer, closer. Then the monitor went black. Just static. A soft knock came at the nurse's station door. Not the heavy kind a patient might make. It was delicate, slow. 3 precise taps. Tap, tap, tap. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. Then the voice returned, muffled through the door, but somehow crystal clear in my head. I was left here. I was forgotten. But you're not like them. You listened. I stepped back slowly, toward the emergency panel, fumbling for the lockdown switch. My hand froze when I saw my reflection in the glass of the medicine cabinet. She was behind me, a little girl, maybe 10 years old, wearing a scorched hospital gown, hair matted and burned into parts of her skull. One eye was missing, the other a pale gray, unfocused but locked onto me. I turned around, nothing. But I wasn't alone. The temperature dropped. The overhead light popped, and I felt her hand brush against mine. Then the alarms throughout the hospital began wailing. Red strobes lighting up the hallways, sirens screaming. Patients started shouting from their rooms, all of them saying the same phrase, over and over, louder and louder. Let her out. Let her out. Let her out. The door to room 6 had vanished from the monitor. And then, so did the hallway. The cameras went dead, and the building seemed to hold its breath again. By the time the alarm shut off, the entire building had gone dark. No backup power, no emergency lights, just pitch black silence. I curled into the corner of the nurse's station, flashlight gripped in both hands, shaking so hard I could barely keep it steady. I tried calling Janice, no signal. Tried the landline, dead. Every few minutes, I'd hear soft footsteps just outside the door. Slow, barefoot, like she was circling me, waiting. I must have passed out at some point. When I opened my eyes, the sun was rising. The lights were back on. The monitors were working, and room 6's door was closed again. I went to check it, heart racing, still locked, like nothing had happened. But when I looked closer, the metal number plate was gone, just 4 deep scratch marks where the number 6 used to be. Janice came in just after 7 a.m., acting like everything was normal. I tried to explain, but the moment I said room 6, she went quiet. Her face changed. You heard her, didn't you? She said softly. That means she's attached now. I didn't ask what that meant. I didn't want to know. She just handed me my paperwork and said, most people don't last after the first knock. I quit on the spot, but ever since, every night at 12:03, I hear it. Tap, tap, tap. Not at the hospital. At home. Behind the walls. I've moved twice since that night at Ridgeway. New town, new apartment. Even changed my phone number. But it hasn't helped. No matter where I go, she finds me. It always starts the same way. Just after midnight, the air turns cold. Lights flicker. And then, at 12:03 on the dot, 3 soft knocks. Tap, tap, tap. Not on the door. Not the windows. From inside the walls. I've tried ignoring it, just like Janice said. I play loud music, sleep with the TV on, and wear earplugs. But somehow, the sound always gets through. And now the voice does too. It's different than before. Softer. Closer. I hear it whisper my name now. Not from across a hospital corridor, but from the other side of my bedroom wall. She says I promised her something, that I opened the door, but I never did. I swear I never touched it. Then again, maybe listening was enough. I've stopped telling people. They just think I'm dealing with stress or insomnia. One friend even said I should talk to a therapist. I smiled and nodded, but deep down, I know there's no help for me. You can't reason with something that isn't alive. Some nights, I press my ear to the wall and just listen, the whispering growing louder. And lately, it sounds like more than one voice. Maybe she's not alone there. Maybe she never was. I don't know how long I can take it, but I do know this. Tonight's my birthday, and at 12:03, I'm going to knock back.